Hi, and welcome to today's podcast, Find Bliss Within, with Dr. Jackie Nonweiler. She has a PhD in clinical and health psychology. She's also a healer, teacher, and ritual master in modern mystery school in the lineage of King Salomon. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you so much for having me, Kasha.
Today's episode will be very interesting, so please stay tuned in. We will be talking about our mind, our ego, and how therapy and healing can support each other on our healing journey. Jackie, would you like to share a little bit about your journey? Maybe what called you to actually study psychology, and then also what led you to become a healer and study in mystery school?
Yeah, my motivation to study psychology came from, I think, what's really the most natural, which is just that I wanted to understand humans. I wanted to understand how people worked, and specifically the mind. I thought I wanted to be like maybe a doctor or a biologist. And then when I got further into biology, I realized that it wasn't the heart or the lungs or joints that interested me. It was really how we thought and how we related to other people.
Mm, amazing.
So I became a psychologist, like, yeah, just wanting to understand the mind. I started with studying neuroscience, and then there was still kind of like a level of discontent. It felt like there were still pieces missing. It seemed like we understood and we had like a nice tool to understand the brain, understand the mind, but there's still so much that we don't know about the brain and as scientists. And some researchers say that we actually know more about like space than we do about the brain, which when you think about how small and accessible our brain is compared to space seems ridiculous. But yeah, that's why I started studying psychology.
Amazing. And did the calling to become a healer came before or after? How did that, how did that happen?
Yeah, I think it came after, or a little bit during, because after university, I had studied neuroscience, I had this degree, and I saw kind of everyone around me going out and getting like corporate jobs and marketing and like all this stuff. And I didn't know what I wanted instead, but I knew that whatever they were doing was not it. It wasn't like the ultimate expression of being a human to me. Um, and I think a lot of people feel this way, like we all get wrapped up in what we should do, in jobs, in corporate, in worlds that like we just feel like is kind of a box that we don't necessarily fit into. And I took a perhaps somewhat rebellious approach to that and just said like I'm not gonna do that. And I went traveling and then decided to study ultimately and to continue studying and trying to understand the brain. And sort of in parallel, I had a spiritual journey that started through yoga. Like wanted to stretch and through yoga I realized like there's something else going on here. And then I wanted to know what that something was. But it was really just this like voracious seeking that never stopped until um, much like maybe people listening, one day found someone in the Modern Mystery School, found a guide who I didn't know was a guide. And there was just something about her words, about the way that she spoke and it was online, much like this, that I couldn't shake. And I didn't know what it was that she had to bring me or give me, but whatever it was, I knew I wanted it. And so I tried healing. Because there was still part of me through all of this searching, all of this academic, all of this like doing that I had done, become really accomplished, like traveled the world, got degrees from, top universities and there was something that didn't quite click still. And so I just kept looking. And then
So it's
yeah.
because it's like in a way, science and art and mystical teaching kind of opposite. So it's amazing that you were able to explore both and able to help clients from this double angle in a way. So I we had a quite few people were excited about this interview, and we had a quite few questions coming in. So one
Yeah.
was how actually therapy and healings come hand in hand. Can I support each other? At which point do we choose, which one? Can you share a little bit more from your experience?
Yeah, so psychology is a wonderful tool. It really is. It starts us on a path of understanding what's going on within. And especially, I think, in the world of so many distractions, so much social media, it's really simple and easy to get wrapped up in TikTok or in Instagram or in TV or even in like social engagements or people. Um, and we have this kind of disconnect with how I feel. And psychology is a helpful tool because maybe we realize there's something wrong. Maybe we realize like, oh, we're not super happy. We're not in joy. We're not content in some way. And psychology gets you thinking, gets you looking at the why. And it really brings a level of awareness that you can't have without wanting to understand, right? But then what happens in psychology therapies with a lot of people with myself and with a lot of my clients that I've seen is that you can be a really high functioning human being and have a very powerful mind. You can be really, really smart and you can think your way around every single problem and be hyper aware of why it's happening and know exactly the dynamics going on from your childhood, from your family, from whatever, and yet you can't move beyond it. And that's the problem with psychology is it's a fantastic tool. It really is, particularly if you've never done any sort of anything before. But it's not a complete system. It doesn't get you past the problem usually. Um, and when I started healing, I realized that this mind thing was actually holding me back and holding my clients back. And when you bring in a thousands of year old spiritual tool that doesn't make any sense, your mind can't grasp it. And yet then it starts to work at a level beyond the mind. And when those things starts happening, when that starts happening, you're it's like you have a steak knife instead of a butter knife. Like you can cut away, whether intentionally or not, at whatever your problem is. And it's like it magically works. So then psychology now helps my clients get to a point, and I use my tools, obviously, from being a psychologist to get them to the point where they're aware of the problem. And some people are already hyper aware of the problem, and some people aren't. And that's fine. But then from there, you need the spirit, you need the soul, you need tools that work better. And it sounds super skeptical as a normal human being. And it sounded super skeptical to me too, because I was a scientist and it didn't make sense. And there was no evidence and there was no empirical proof behind a stick and a rock working to help me change my life. But then it works. And the scientific method ultimately is about trying things and seeing what works. And this worked the best. And so now I offer it and Kasha offers it to anyone who wants to heal beyond anything they've ever tried before. It just works better.
I love how live activation really allows us to begin this journey of letting go of those conditioning and trauma and limitation without actually needing spending hours talking about the pain that we have experienced, talking about the how horrific the life was or how challenging the life was, that we receive the light, the DNA gets activated, we get reconnected to our original divine blueprint, and we get on with our life. And as the weeks and months pass by, when we pause and we look back, we're like, oh wow, I'm responding to this situation differently, and my mind is more quieter, and I feel more relaxed, and I'm sleeping better. So I always love, that was my experience, and I always love watching my clients how as the time is passing by and we're working, and of course at different times we're using different healing sessions, and Paradise Self program initiation is all, the ultimate to make our clients empowered and really take care of themselves. But it's amazing how we can really start shifting without needing to talk so much about something, that the change happens at the root inside of us.
Yeah, and the feedback I get from people most often is that sometimes they don't realize how much they've changed because it's not a struggle.
Mm.
Like you go, you get a life activation, it's an hour and a half, hour and a half long session, something like that. Depends on who you see and how much you chat. Um, and then you go and you live your life. And things start to shift. And when things start to shift, they shift so naturally because you're plugged into who you are that you don't necessarily even realize how much you're changing. And sometimes it's other people in your life notice before you do because you're just living. It's not an uphill battle in the same way anymore. Um, and that's the best thing ever because it doesn't actually have to be hard all the time. We're so used to thinking that healing is this like battle, um, and that it has to be difficult, but it's not always difficult.
I actually was one of those clients where I received live activation and other healing sessions like aura healings and full spirit, and really wanted more. I could feel the sessions are working, something is shifting, but I didn't really pay attention what is shifting. I just in inside of me, I knew I want more. So only after my Empower Thyself program, my guide, a few months after using the tools, she actually mentioned to me like, "Wow, you've changed so much since we met," and we've worked most probably by that time around 1 year together. And I was like, "Oh, have I?" But prior to that, I actually was exploring many different things like EFT, psychology. I was a yoga teacher, and the process was much slower. It required much more work. So when she said it, that so much has changed, it took me by surprise. And I actually I sat in her office while she was making tea, and I was reflecting how I was a year ago. And few moments after, I was in awe, like, wow, you know, how amazing those tools are. And actually, in that moment, the desire to help others uh, awoke within me, because I felt like if I could change so much in a space of year, I want everyone to experience this.
Yeah, amazing.
Mhm. So, as a psychologist, I'm sure you talk a lot with your clients about triggers and about our negative ego. So how actually the therapy and the tools, the healings, and maybe tools from Empower Thyself can actually help us to shift that, to go beyond that trigger, to heal that trigger at the root, so it's no longer there.
hmm So your triggers are a reminder of something that was either big T or little t traumatic, something uncomfortable, something that you didn't either enjoy or feel safe when you experienced it in the first place, coming back because something reminds you of it. So, say like you're a child and something really horrible, like maybe you get in a car accident and the color you see is like yellow, then maybe at some point in your future, a similarly stressful situation happens. Someone's wearing the color yellow, and you react in a way that is out of proportion essentially to what's actually happening. That's a trigger. Yeah. And when we think about triggers, they get kind of a bad rap. Like people don't like talking about triggers now. I think it's not like the politically correct thing to say. We like to talk about getting activated. Um, but I personally choose to use the word triggered because it's a really um apt explanation for what it feels like to be triggered. It's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. And your triggers can be such a tool to help you see where you can grow. They're a reflection ultimately of what you can change and help you dive deeper into where where you feel uncomfortable and where you don't feel healed and where you don't feel safe. And from a nervous system perspective, that's so important, right? As far as healings go, any healing that you receive within the lineage is going to help you with your triggers because they bring more light into your structure. You become like a more coherent version of yourself. It's like plugging up the holes. And if you plug up the holes and you bring in more light, you see better. And when you see better, you will be triggered. You will see things that are uncomfortable, but then it's up to you as an empowered being to choose what to do with them. Um, and so I would challenge everyone to reframe a trigger from being something to avoid to something to be grateful for. Because a trigger can really bring you from like a limited state of not expressing yourself and noticing where you're hurt into a full expression of someone empowered who can have huge impact on the planet.
I think sometimes, like you said, when we feel uncomfortable, we want to kind of push it away and not look at it. But when we receive healing session and we are in this sacred space and we are held in the light, I think that creates just another level of invitation of going deeper in and really face so-called monsters, and to look at them closely, and maybe they are not such a big monsters. Maybe beyond the monster uh, perception, there's just the part which is asking us to love, to show up, to care of that little one, that inner child within.
Absolutely. I always think about it like if you're walking on the beach and there are like rocks and maybe you step on something and it's pokey and it hurts. Then instead of like running away from the rock, maybe the most helpful thing is to like pick it up and look at it and say like, okay, what happened here? Like why did this hurt? And is this dangerous? Is this actually like is this harming me? Or do I have something here to learn?
For someone who've done maybe quite few sessions of therapy, they've explored the past and they became more aware. What would be the recommendation you would suggest, the first good step, and maybe what would be great to follow up, to allow this transformation to go deeper and deeper in?
Yeah, I would recommend first that that you reflect on how successful therapy's been for you. How long have you been in therapy? And like, are you in joy? Are you taking on challenges and struggles in your life with passion and gratitude that you get to experience them? And if you're not, why not? Like, what are you not appreciating? Where are you still missing the point? And I say that in the most compassionate way because there are places that we're all missing the point, myself included. So that would be the first step. And then the second step would be to receive true healings. So all of the modern mystery school healings are proven. They work. They've worked for thousands of years and they'll work for you. They work for every single human being on the planet. If you haven't received a life activation, that's the first step. It connects you to your purpose and opens up so much possibility for you and your life and what you can accomplish in your purpose. And then beyond that, like from a scientific, psychological perspective, I love the full spirit activation, which activates actually centers in your brain and aligns those to the light, which is fascinating. The thalamus, like just really nerdy, cool stuff, and aligns your brain to the light. So it shifts your mind. It opens your senses. It makes you more intuitive. You stop getting stuck in the same places you always get stuck after a full spirit activation. And it really does like complete a piece. And then I would say that if you have like a specific pattern or area of life maybe that you keep getting hung up and stuck on, I would recommend doing the Ensophic Ray healing modality, either the full series, which works to decalcify limiting beliefs in the brain that are the things keeping you stuck, and also the negative habit removal. So if you can, and if you are psychologically inclined, you can systematically, like, and I do this with clients, but you can systematically narrow down, like, okay, this is my problem. How can I narrow this down into the root limiting belief or issue that's at the core of the thing? And then a practitioner like Kasha or myself or many, many other people, if you're listening to this from a different country, you can find one. I'm sure Kasha will leave some notes for us. Um, but you can then receive this healing actually at a distance. You don't have to receive it in person, which is so powerful and wonderful. Um, and target that particular belief, and it shines a huge amount of light into that thing and pushes out all this negativity, and then you walk away with awareness of what's going on. You walk away with clarity about what you need to do. You walk away with, oh my God, this is how my life needs to change. If you're stuck around the same problem, this is an amazing opportunity and a hugely, like, just genuinely, it's the best place to go if you can't find a practitioner in your area.
So there is such a wide range of tools uh, that are offered in our lineage, in a King Salomon lineage, that can really address so much. Not only what you shared, but there is, sometimes some of my clients, they struggle with emotions. For that, there's so many healing sessions that can support us. Let's face it, when we emotional, we don't see the situation with a clear eyes.
Yeah, it's like those classic situations where you go and like you have an experience with someone and you get really angry and triggered and upset, and then you react and then you walk away and you're like, oh my God, why did I do that? That was so stupid. It happens to all of us, right? So, Kasha, what emotional healing do we need?
Well, there's so much. One of my favorite one is Isis healing. But
Yeah.
we have so much like secret geometry free healing. Seven layers of the aura is a great healing session for moments in life when we feel very emotional. But ultimately, what I love always guiding my clients to is to live empowered life. And I love teaching them tools of empowered thyself. Imagine learning how to flow light into yourself, into your structure every day. So that growth can continue going up and up and up, and you can keep getting know yourself beyond the pain, because so often we look at ourselves, but what we see is this massive gap. We see the pain, we see the suffering, we see the conditioning, we see the trauma, and we cannot really get to know ourselves truly. So by flowing the light, by using the tools that we flow the light, we cleansing, we realigning, rebalancing, we connecting to our body, soul, and spirit. We keep expanding our awareness so we can ourselves ultimately become our greatest teacher and healer and live empowered life, having more clarity, having more balance and harmony, so we can address those challenging situations because life happens for all of us. The challenges comes, but we can approach those challenges with clarity of the mind and being more, as we will say in the middle pillars, they're seeing the solution, and that's where the true magic happens, where we can really quantum leap.
Yeah, and the most powerful thing to me when I did Empower Thyself was that it was like a remembering. It was like pieces of me were waking up that I always like suspected were there, but I had never really felt. And to feel that is in itself healing. And then to be able to walk away with tools to return to that space every day means that you're continually remembering. It's like you wake up again and again and again and again. And how could you not live in an empowered way if you're remembering more of who you are and what you're meant to do? Because your whatever your mission is on the planet, it's sacred. It's important. People need to hear what you have to say, to give, to offer. And it's so easy in the world to get caught up in am I good? Did I do it right? Do people love me? Like, what if it's already been done? All of that. But you wouldn't be here if you didn't have something to offer. And when you can re-anchor that every single day, your whole life changes. It's inevitable. It's so cool.
One of our listeners, they've asked how actually the healings affect our relationships.
And if you change in family dynamics, in internal family systems therapy, we talk about the family dance. But this is within any sort of like social structure, right? But everyone has a role and everyone plays their role. But if one person in that system changes the way that they show up, everyone else changes their rules and their dance and the steps that they make too. So if you think that you're not affecting the people around you, you're wrong. But but no, for real, you have more power than you think. And when you do empower thyself and you start to really anchor those changes into your life, it's inevitable. You start to see relationships change. You start to see people around you being empowered. You start to see people like waking up and wanting more out of life. And it's just the most satisfying thing, really. Like you want to heal your mother? Do empower thyself. You know, learn how to do a life activation and offer it to people. It's such an effective way to move all of humanity beyond the place that we're in, which is in a place where we need help. We need help. It's true.
What an incredible time we had. Thank you for being here with us.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me, Kasha.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Until the next time.